are the properties of Brahman, because it doesn't have qualities. Gunas means qualities. Only a substance has qualities. Brahman is not a substance, therefore doesn't have qualities. And that's why there are only indirect methods of trying to get to Brahman. Famous method used in the Shastras is, example is Chandra Shakha Nyaya. If you want to see a crescent moon on a bright sunlit sky, you can see it. If you want to show it to somebody else who can't see the crescent moon, what do? There's nothing, it's a cloudless sky. You tell him, look out there in the meadow, you see that tree? So he says, yes. You go up the trunk and the second branch on the right, you see that? Okay, go right down that branch, and at the end of that branch is a twig. You see the twig? He says, yes. And at the end of that twig there are 2 leaves fluttering in the breeze. You see the leaves? Yes. Now, look between the leaves. Now I see the moon. Now, if you analyze, the tree has nothing to do with the moon. The branch has nothing to do with the moon. The twig has nothing to do with the moon. The leaves are miles and thousands of miles away from the moon. Yet, the tree, the branch, the twig, the leaves help in locating that crescent moon which is miles away. Similarly, the knowledge of Vedanta has nothing to do with Atman. It is still a part of the world. Yet, there has been such a masterly presentation of this knowledge that somehow they take us from the tree, trunk, branch, twig, leaves, and they say, look between the leaves, look between the thoughts. In meditation, look between 2 thoughts and you've got it. It is this knowledge, friends, that lends vibrancy, that gives us that cheer. In this country there's so many things that are going wrong, and yet there is this basic cheer, there's this basic happiness, basic sense of humor. This life is worth living here. You go to Western countries, they have everything. The infrastructure is perfect. They never have water cuts, they don't have electricity cuts, they don't have traffic jams, not like we have. None of the problems that we have they experience, and yet there is no cheer. I don't know if you experience that. We go for 1 month, and when you come back you feel, what a relief. We've come back to some sensible place. And it is this, I'm not just saying it because it is our country. You've got to see it. It's this Vedanta that gives us this edge. We may not have many things in life, but thank God for the fact that we have Vedanta. Minus Vedanta, we'd be completely in the doldrums. But using this knowledge of Vedanta, we can get everything else as well. And then we'll be in heaven. You create a heaven right here in this world. And to that end, we must have this commitment, you must have this vision. The vision to create a Satya Yuga in Kali Yuga. The vision to create a sattvic environment and be a beacon light for the world to follow. Why must we follow Rajasic role models, where the end result is, as is said in the Gita, Ye pachanti atma karanat, those who cook for themselves, Rajasic people, they cook but eat sin. Eat sin means agitations. That's why in a country like the United States, the highest selling medicine is Prozac, an antidepressant. Why should it be so? It is so because there is no sattva, there is no knowledge of this Vedanta. With Vedanta, with Vedantic knowledge, you may not have anything out there in the world, but internally you'll be bubbling with excitement and cheer and joy and happiness. A happiness that is independent of the world. So then he says, Paramatma, that supreme self, that is not limited by the body, mind and intellect. Even though a person may be operating through the body, mind and intellect, his personality, his being is not limited by the body, mind and intellect. Avyayah. The word vyaya means expenditure actually. Avyaya means after spending, it still remains the same. Meaning undiminished. Imperishable. Therefore, avyaya means imperishable. You take away from it and it still remains complete. Even mathematically it's true. Infinite minus anything is still infinite. You take away infinite from infinite, what is remaining? Still infinite. Avyaya means that imperishable. In our life we experience everything perishes, everything passes. And yet, in and through our experiences, there is one factor that never leaves us. And what is that? Atman you don't know. I. When you're born, you say, I am an infant. You don't say, you can't speak. But your experience is that. I am an infant. Then you grow up into a toddler. I am a toddler. Then you become a teenager. I am a teenager. And then you grow into adulthood and I am an adult. And then with the passage of time, you don't say, others say. Old man. The infant is not the toddler is not the teenager is not the young strapping adult, the adult is not the old man, and yet in and through all these experiences there is that one I which never leaves you. That's why in the Atma Bodha, the invocation is so inspiring. Tad Brahma Nishkalamaham Nacha Bhuta Sangha. That imperishable, indivisible Brahman am I, not this assemblage of matter. That you should repeat to yourself, not mechanically, with feeling, with conviction, with commitment. And then you get there. So the only way to appreciate what they're saying is to look at those who are less developed than you understand the difference. When you look at people who are higher than you, it's blurred, the vision is blurred, you can't tell. That's why they say, don't pass judgment, don't follow the personality of a teacher. Not because the teacher is afraid of your passing judgment, because you can't understand, just as a child can never understand the joys of adulthood. The child can only understand, oh, what a boring life you are, all you do is sit in an office the whole day and come back saying, I'm tired. How boring. He doesn't understand the thrill you have in being one up on the competitor, being one up on your colleagues, getting a promotion and pushing other people down, all that. The child doesn't understand. Such a person, na karoti, doesn't do anything. Na lipyate, is not tainted. It's like this. Atman is, as I think it was Browning who said, you and I are nothing but imprisoned splendor. The splendor of Atman is imprisoned as it were. You can never imprison Atman, but it seems like it is imprisoned in the body, mind and intellect. And yet, even when you are functioning in the body, mind and intellect, you are Nitya Shuddha, ever pure. Nitya Buddha, ever awakened. Nitya Mukta, ever free. But you don't experience that because your identification is with body, mind and intellect. It's like this. If you bring a piece of iron to a horseshoe magnet, what happens? It is attracted by the magnet, it's influenced by the magnet, it is victimized by the magnet. You take away the iron and bring a piece of wood to the magnet, what happens? Nothing happens. The wood is immune to the influence of the magnet, however powerful the magnet is. Now, if you were to tie the iron and the wood together and bring that combination to the magnet, what happens? Sorry? The combination is attracted by the magnet, the combination is influenced by the magnet, the combination is victimized by the magnet. But you know this much physics to understand that even when the combination is attracted by the magnet, the wooden piece in the combination is still immaculate, untouched. Nitya Shuddha, Nitya Buddha, Nitya Mukta. Right? In the same way, you and I are, don't say you're a combination of wood and iron. Combination of matter and spirit. Matter, body, mind and intellect are equated to the iron which is affected by the world. The world must necessarily affect the body, mind and intellect. You can't help that. Even in a Mahatma, even in a sage, the sage's body, mind and intellect will be influenced by the world. Magnetic influence of the world. But Atman in each one of us is ever pure, untouched by the vagaries of the world. But you don't experience that. Why? Because you have bound yourself to the body, mind and intellect. You've identified with yourself with the body, mind and intellect in such a way that you've become an inseparable part of body, mind and intellect. So therefore, when the world influences the body, mind and intellect, you feel as if you are influenced. But even when you are influenced, the Atman in you is still immaculate, untouched. So all you have to do is loosen the bondage. Then what will happen? The body, mind and intellect will get influenced. You will remain untouched by it. And there are people who have got to that state. Great men and women of realization in this country, who are not in ones and twos, the scores, so many of them. All of them have shown, not just by their teachings, but by their experience, by their life, that it is possible to reach a state where you're operating with the body, mind and intellect, but you're established in Atman. And that's the state that you and I must aspire to reach, and then by example show to the rest of the world. 33.
Yatha sarvagatam saukshmyat akasham nopalipyate sarvatravastito dehe tathatmanopalipyate.
The self, though existing everywhere in the body, remains untainted, just as the all-pervading space is untainted because of its subtlety. So it's like this. Atman is unmanifest, but the moment there is the manifestation in the world consists of the 5 Mahabhutas. You remember he said that in verse 6. Mahabhutas means 5 great elements. The 5 elements are space, air, fire, water, earth. What he is saying here is, the moment, see, this is terrestrial. The moment you get into these 5, it's part of the world, it's terrestrial. You go beyond it to Atman, it's transcendental. The terrestrial cannot taint the transcendental because it is the subtlest, it's too subtle. And he gives an example to validate his argument by saying the all-pervading space is untainted because of its subtlety. See, space is the subtlest among the 5 elements. In fact, it pervades the other 4 elements as well. All the other 4 elements, air, fire, water and earth, exist in space. Yet, space is untainted by any of it. Air can be polluted. Space can never be polluted. The pollution that is there in the air cannot touch space because space is subtler than air. Space is subtler than all of the other elements. Similarly, Atman is subtler than even space. Space is still matter, even though it's gross matter. Atman, in fact, is subtler than even the mind and the intellect. These 5 are gross matter, mind, intellect, subtle matter. Even vasanas are matter, prakriti. So, Atman, though existing in the body, though operating in the body, is untainted by the qualities of the body, mind and intellect. See, just as all cars run because of petrol, and the petrol that is there, that in all cars, is the same. Yet, look at the performance. Performance in this old, what is it, Fiat, Premia Padmini you call it, disgraceful. The performance in some of these new Honda Accord or what is the other one? Toyota Camry is magnificent. But compared to this, the performance of a Mercedes or a BMW is fantastic. And a racing car is even better. But all of us know that the fuel in all these cars is the same. So petrol is untainted by the deficiencies in the engine of the car. The performance of the car is determined by the engine, not by the fuel. In the same way, Atman, though existing everywhere in the body, why does he say everywhere? Because every activity of yours, whether physical, emotional or intellectual, is supported by Atman. And what stupidity comes out of us? Incredible stupidity. Yet Atman is untainted. Atman is perfection personified. Is untouched by any of the mistakes that you make, any of the inefficiencies, deficiencies that we have, because it is subtler than the body, mind and intellect. And the example he gives is of space. Even in literature you have, stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. You put a person in a prison, what are you imprisoning? What are you holding? You're only holding his body. You have absolutely no control over his emotions, you have no control over his thoughts. That's what the British did. They didn't understand this verse. They took all the intellectuals of the country who were fighting for independence, put them in jail. They did the best thing that they wanted. Because in jail, physically they were looked after, 2 square meals they got. The rest of the time they were focused on planning, scheming how to get independence, and they got it. So you put an intellectual in prison, he is happy. Or so many of the Aurobindo wrote some of his fantastic commentaries on the Upanishads, etc., from prison. Amazing. No reference books, no text, nothing. How many of these people came out with fabulous literature out of prison? So you can only imprison the body. You can't imprison his mind, can't imprison his intellect. And yet there are people with a strong intellect who hold a person's intellect, refuse to let them think freely. Physically they are free. That's much worse. So when he says this, he says, you must repeat to yourself, the self, though existing everywhere in the body, remains untainted. Convert the self from the self to I. Say, I remain untainted. And it gives you a tremendous confidence. Doesn't matter what happens to the body. You see, for a disease like cancer can ravage your body, but it cannot touch you. Somebody can hurt your emotions, but can't have any influence over yourself, your Atman. People can insult you intellectually, insult your intellect, but they have no influence whatsoever over Atman. So all you have to do is shift, just take one step backward into Atman, and then you're completely immune to the influences of the world. That's what gives the realized person power. Power comes when you're not susceptible, when you're not victimized by the world. 34.
यथा प्रकाशयत्येकः कृत्स्नं लोकमिमं रविः क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृत्स्नं प्रकाशयति भारत.
O Bharata, descendant of Bharata, the Kshetri means Supreme Self, illumines the entire Kshetra, just as the one sun illumines this entire world. You see, earlier when he is talking of the Self, because the Self or Atman is unknown to you, you think of it as some kind of black hole. He is trying to correct that impression by saying, Prakasha, it's full of light, it's dazzling. In the Upanishad, he puts it so dramatically. The student on the verge of realization is so dazzled by the power of Atman that he says, he takes a while to get accustomed to it. He says, take that away. Wait. So it's full of light. It's illumining everything. So he says, just as the one sun illumines this entire world, the one Kshetri self illumines the entire Kshetra field. Meaning all matter is enlivened, illuminated by Atman. So there are three comparisons here. Number one, the sun is responsible for millions of reflections in the world. Wherever there is a reflecting surface, a reflected sun appears. Yet the sun above is still one. And that sun vitalizes everything in the world. Without the sun, no activity is possible. If the earth were to move a few kilometers away from the sun, we'll all be frozen to death. That much dependence there is on the sun. It illumines everything. No activity is possible without the sun. Number three, the sun has nothing to do with the reflections. The moment the reflected sun appears, the reflected sun then becomes constricted, limited by the properties of the reflecting medium and loses its original properties. That's why the reflected suns are not only many, but each reflected sun is different from the other. The properties of the reflected sun differ because the reflected sun takes to the properties of the reflecting medium. Similarly, Atman is